Hi everyone, it's Kerry back with you today. Today I've got another project that uses a full sheet of 12 by 12 scrapbook paper and you don't have any scraps left over. We'll be creating these little pocket folders that have two pockets, one here and one here, and you also end up with three little tags like this and an extra little piece of paper that you could use to make a little booklet, or you could cut the edges off and make it into a long tag. You can use single-sided or double-sided papers for this project. If you're using a single-sided paper, you'll use that last piece of paper that I just showed to make a cover for the inside of your folder. So grab a piece of 12 by 12 scrapbook paper and let's get started. Today's project was inspired by a lady over on Instagram called Happy Art Journal. I'll leave a link in the description box below to her Instagram page. She was using much smaller paper. I think it was either A4 or letter size paper, and she wasn't using any measurements, but I've created these measurements to work on a 12 by 12 sheet of paper. You can download this measurement sheet from our website, and there'll be a link in the description box below to that. It looks a bit complicated, but once you've made one or two, you probably won't even need the instructions or measurements anymore. So I'm just going to pop those to the side for a moment. And I have here a sheet of 12 by 12, and I'm going to cut this down to 21 centimetres or 8¼ inches by the full width of the sheet. So I've got a cutting mat here which has centimetres along the top, so I'm just going to come along to 21 centimetres and then I'm going to cut straight down. If you don't have a cutting mat with measurements on it, you can just make marks from here across 21 centimetres and the same on the bottom, and then cut your paper down. So now I've cut down my paper. We need to keep this piece aside because we'll use this later. And I've got my sheet here that is 21 centimetres wide and the full width of the scrapbook sheet long, which is 30½ centimetres or 12 by 12 inches. So I've brought my scoreboard in, and the first thing I need to do is fold my piece of paper in half long ways, and I'm just going to use the edge of my scoreboard to help me do that. And just going to crease that down with a bone folder and then open it back up. So the next thing I need to do is score 5 centimetres or 2 inches down from the top, and then another score line at 13 centimetres or 5 1/8 inch down, but we're only going to score to this middle point that we've just folded into the paper. So I'm going to turn my page like this, and I'm going to come across 5 centimetres and I'm going to score down to my middle line, and then I'm going to come across 13 centimetres and again scoring down just to this middle score line here. I also need to score up 11 centimetres or 4 1/4 inches from the bottom on this side. So if I rotate my paper, I can come in 11 centimetres and score again only to this midpoint. So hopefully you can see the score lines here, and I've got another one here. The next thing I need to do is cut down our middle score line, the first fold that we put, and I'm going to cut down to this second score line on this side of the page. So hopefully you can see those score lines there. So I have a score line across here and then my fold line in the middle of the page here. So I'm cutting from the top down to this score line. So now we just need to fold the paper along our score lines. So I'm going to fold down and then I'm going to tuck this one underneath. So I've got that tucked up here, and then I'm going to fold it in half like this, and then this becomes our envelope flap or folder flap here. So I've got one pocket here, our second pocket here, and our folded flap. So now all we need to do is secure the sides down of our little pockets here. You could use glue and just pop a little bit of glue on each side, making sure you get in between each of the different flaps. But I prefer to sew around the edge. You could also probably use washi tape with glue if you prefer. So I'm just going to go round and I'm going to start sewing at the top. I'm going to sew all the way round and end up right back where I started. So now I've sewn all the way round my little pocket folder here, and I've got one pocket here and my second pocket here. It's time to bring in our extra piece of paper that we cut off of the edge of our 12 by 12. So there's lots of different things that you could do with this piece of paper, but just as an idea, I have folded mine in half, and then I have cut out along my fold line. So now we have these two pieces. Now if I was using a single-sided scrapbook paper, you could pop this onto the inside of the cover and that would line the inside of the cover for you. If you wanted to glue it down onto here before you did your stitching, then you would stitch over the top. If you've already stitched around the edge, you can just trim this piece of paper down to fit inside your cover, and your stitching will still be able to be seen. The paper that I've chosen is double-sided. I've got these extra pieces of paper to use to make ephemera for this little folder. So I'm going to use one of these pieces of paper to make 3 little tags. So I'm just going to measure this piece of paper. It's just over 15 centimetres in width. So I know I can get 3 tags out at about 5 centimetres each. So now I have 3 small pieces of paper, and I'm just going to snip the corners off to make them tag shaped. So now I have these 3 little tags. Now I could punch holes in those and decorate those up, and they will fit nicely in my little folder here. And then I have this other piece of paper if I'm not using it to line the top cover of my envelope, and I can just fold that in half. You could of course cut that down and have 2 wider tags, but you could add just a couple of little pages on the inside there and then tuck that in, and you've got a little booklet in there as well. So once you've completed your little pocket folder with your tags and little booklet or lined it, it's really just a matter of embellishing it however you like. So for mine, I've punched a hole in the front here and added an eyelet so that I could have this twine as a closure. I've just done some simple collaging on the front here, and then I've filled it up with all sorts of bits of ephemera, including our little tags that we made. And then I've also included a little booklet that I made from the remaining piece of paper, and I've used scraps to fill that up as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. I will leave a link in the description box below to both Happy Art Journal's Instagram page and to the shop where you can download your own copy of the measurements. That might make it a little bit easier, but once you've made a couple of these, you probably won't even need this sheet anymore. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you again next time. Bye.